Welcome to the third webinar of EPNoSL VIP, the virtual platform of the European Policy Network on School Leadership. I'm glad to see some familiar names in the list of participants. My name is Nóra Révai, and I'm going to host this session today. Before we start, a few words about EPNoSL. EPNoSL VIP is a series of programs including webinars and forum discussions on different topics of school leadership. The forum discussions take place on the EPNoSL portal, and you can see the link on the slide in front of you, www.schoolleadership.eu, and then if you press the button of EPNoSL VIP, you can access the discussions. You will also find the full program of the virtual platform there. All activities are open to anyone who is interested, and if you also wish to contribute to the discussions, you just need to register on the EPNoSL portal on the same link. So our topic today is the accountability of schools, and we are going to address this topic with the help of two speakers, Igors Grigorjevs from Latvia and Mika Risku from Finland. Next week, the related forum discussion starts with the same topic based on a keynote article by Andrej Koren from the National School for Leadership in Education in Slovenia. And before I introduce our speakers and before we start, let me show you some features of this webinar platform, especially for those of you who are not yet familiar with it. So, you will always see the person who is speaking. Other web cameras and microphones will be inactive. At the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a chat box, which you will be able to use to ask your questions after the presentation, but you can also start the discussion during the presentation. So I would like to encourage everybody to use the chat box and write your thoughts and questions regarding what you hear. You can also send private messages to another participant by selecting the whisper function from the drop-down menu, where now it says say, and if you click on the little arrow, you can select whisper, and then once you selected whisper, you can select the participant to whom you would like to whisper. You can try the chat box maybe and say hello. That's what I will do. At the bottom left-hand corner, you have some emoticons that you can use. Give feedback, for example. So you can see a little hand at the bottom left-hand corner, and you can test it. Can you tell me how you are feeling right now? I chose a smiley. If you wish, you can try out this button. Oh yeah, I can see that some people are also smiling. And to remove your emoticon, you just have to click on the button I'm fine. The little green tick. The webinar is going to be recorded, and the session will then be published on the EPNoSL portal, so you will be able to review the whole session. As your feedback is very important to us, we would be very grateful if you dedicated a few minutes to evaluate the webinar after the session. Here is the link to do that, but the same link will also be published on the portal of EPNoSL VIP, so you will be able to access it from the portal as well. Okay, and let us now start. I would like to introduce you our first speaker, Igors Grigorjevs, whose educational background is economics, and he was drawn into education because of his deep commitment towards the field. It is his third year as a principal of a small primary school next to the capital of Latvia. So, Igors, I would like to give the floor to you now.
Thank you. Hello. I'm waiting for my presentation, and we shall start soon. Okay, thank you. Hello everyone. I'm really honored to be here and to speak to you. Sorry. As mentioned before, my name is Igors Grigorjevs, and I am a principal of Zakumuiza Primary School in Latvia. Just a brief review about the school. Zakumuiza Primary School is located near the capital city Riga, and it is designed to be a small school, and it is quite small school. We have 290 students aged 1.5 to 15 years. We have about 50 employees. Class sizes differ depending on demographics, and these are 15 to 25 children in a classroom. The school is well performing. It performs quite well, but we are striving to become excellent, and it is much harder to go from good to excellent than it is to go from poor to well-performing school. So that is our struggle. We are trying to become an excellent school here in Latvia. As I think about accountability, I know that there are two basic questions that I try to answer, and these are: what am I accountable for, and whom am I accountable for? But then I try to break these ideas down, and I got to a very simple formula, and I think that to me accountability is about giving promises, hopefully keeping promises, although that is hard, and communicating promises kept. So to me accountability is about giving promises, keeping promises, and communicating promises kept. And I shall speak about practicalities of how we give promises and how we communicate promises that we have kept. So let's talk about giving promises. When I think about giving promises, I think about whom do we promise something, who promises, who is the person who promises, what exactly do we promise, and how do we promise. And I shall start with a city council. Being a school principal, I promise to city council specific things. Each year I promise that generally the school will be better off and performing better this year than it did a year before, and I'm implicitly stating and promising that our parents will be satisfied, which is very important to city council, to politicians, because the biggest nightmare they have is to have dissatisfied parents. So generally my promise is to city council, and the promise is that school will develop, it will become better, and that parents will be satisfied with the school. Interesting, and that is nationally specific thing, is how exactly do we make that promise. And in Latvia we have a formal 3-year plan, and we have also informal promises. Informal promises is going to politicians and saying things will be fine, we will grow, we will develop, we will perform better, and that is just and these are just conversations that are very important. But we also have a formal 3-year plan, which looks something like this. I know you don't see what is written there, but generally we have 6 areas of planning in my school, but you can choose whatever framework you want to. And we have chosen 6 areas of planning that we make promises on. We make promises on developing curriculum and measurement systems. We make promises on developing study environment and learning. We make promises on improving child support. We make promises on cooperation, on improving cooperation with parents and local society, on developing resources, and of course on the quality of school management. These are 6 areas we make promises in, and it is a formal plan that we submit once in 3 years, and that we hopefully discuss more frequently than once in 3 years. So that is a formal promise I make to my superiors, to city council, to politicians, about where I'm leading and we are leading the school. Hopefully we keep our promises, and since we have promised development and satisfied parents to our city council, there should be a point when we look at the past 3 years and look whether we have progressed in keeping our promises. And we have it is not obligatory, it's not required, but we have decided in our school, we have decided that every year we will publish an annual report, which is very nicely designed here in Latvian though. Every year we make an annual report in which we look back at the year and talk about the promises we have kept, about the promises we have given, and the promises we have kept. And the annual report also includes survey of parents. It is a satisfaction survey, and we look at whether parents are satisfied with us. And we give this annual report to politicians and to society in general. It's published in our website, and it's available to everyone. That is about my promises, but it is much more important. It is much more important to give promises to our parents. And there are two set of promises that we make. One set of promises are promises that are made by the teachers themselves. And the promise generally is, together we can succeed. Together we will succeed. How do we make that promise? Where do we make that promise? Where do teachers make that promise? We have parent-teacher evenings in which teachers and parents bond, and these are informal meetings, and promises are exchanged from one side and from the other, and we have also regular one-to-one meetings which are formal and which are scheduled once in half a year, and teachers meet with parents and speak about how the child progresses, and they make promises to each other that they will work hard on lifting the child even higher up. That is about the promises that teachers make. But we, as an organization, as a group of people, as a group of teachers, make explicit promise to all the parents. We make two promises. First, we have stated our vision, and that is a promise about where do we lead the child. And every year we promise to make new initiatives and to continue to develop our school. So we promise initiatives of the year. And we do that in annual conference, which takes place in the beginning of the year, a few days before the school starts. I will talk a bit more about giving that promise, that collective promise. We have devised our vision statement, which, as you see, is written in the format of promise. We promise that we will encourage and support our children on their way towards knowledge, skills, and character traits. We promise that we will inspire our students to make this world a better place, and we expect our students to respect and care for others. This vision statement is not only on the poster on the wall, which is a nice thing, but we also say that in annual conference. And we also announced initiatives for the year, or initiatives of the year, and I just outlined 3 main initiatives of the year, 3 promises that we have given to our parents. And this year, year 2013-2014. And these are that we will focus on learning and time planning skills, which are lacking for our kids, and we will focus on caring for others. We want our kids to care for others, and we will focus on discovering our own region. That is our promise for the year. I was telling about the promises that teachers make to parents and parents make to teachers, and I told you that we have 2 forms, common forms in which that promise is given. We have those parent-to-teacher evenings, which are really informal, making some food together, or are going to excursion together with parents, and conversations are involving and promises are made. But then we have one-to-one meetings twice a year, 20 to 30 minutes sit-downs, focusing on students' success and failures. These are well prepared, and formal promises are made. Each party, parents and teachers, write down the promises for the next period. And of course, these promises are communicated, and we look back at what we have achieved in annual conference. Not only we talk about what was the promise, what do we promise for this year, but we look back how we have succeeded in the previous year. Parent-teacher evenings work well as for giving feedback, and one-to-one parent-teacher meetings also are good enough to look back at the promises kept. So to me, accountability is about giving promises and about communicating kept promises, but of course the most important thing is keeping promises, and that is the hard thing to do for me as well as for others, but that's the way we are trying to go. I'm open for questions. Thank you for your time. And the question is, Nóra, do I answer questions now?
Thank you very much, Igors, for the presentation. And unfortunately, I have to share problematic news with the participants. The other presenter, Mika Risku, has had something unexpected, and we hope that he will arrive a little later. But I suggest that we start. Oh, Mika is here. Fantastic. Okay, then in that case, I would first like to present Mika, and then we will have time to discuss questions, and also questions that were asked to you, Igors. Is that okay?
Okay.
So thank you very much, Igors. And so our second presenter is Mika Risku, who is the director of the Institute of Educational Leadership, University of Jyvaskyla. Mika Risku knows both teachers and principals' work and every day well. He has worked as a teacher in community college for 10 years, and his 15-year experience as a principal comprises both lower and upper secondary education. As a principal, he participated in several curriculum reforms, both at the national and the local level. As a researcher, Mika is particularly interested in education as a societal tool organizational learning and leadership as organizational resource. Mika, Risku has written several publications in the field of educational leadership, presents actively in various conferences, and participates in many working groups which are developing educational leadership. Mika, be very welcome, and the floor is over to you.
Thank you, Nóra. Just to check, can you hear me? I hope so. Let's see. Okay. Good. Then we shall start. Thank you, Nóra, for the presentation, and I have to tell you that nothing unexpected happened. Nothing surprising happened either. Just a human error by me. In my timetable, I had our webinar to start a bit later. So in fact I came very much in good time, but when I came here our people said that Mika, you should have been here already. So I apologize for my wrong timetable marking there. It's good to continue after Igors on accountability. What is my accountability here? I promised to give a webinar on accountability, and I came a bit late for this presentation. What shall we do with that piece of information? To whom I'm accountable? Why? How? Very good questions, and I try to answer those questions while we go on with the presentation too. Accountability for us Finns is somehow a really tricky word, but in another way, from another perspective, very easy. Let's see about the tricky one first. Accountability is a tricky word because, as Pasi Salberg has said in several interviews, in fact, we don't really have a similar word in Finland. Then Pasi Salberg has also said that accountability is something that is left when responsibility has been subtracted. Well, what has responsibility been subtracted from is my question. And maybe the answer comes in the next slide, and that's why accountability is really an easy word for us. We don't really use the word, we rather talk about responsibility. The main responsibility for us is the responsibility the school has towards children and the community. If we think about responsibility, we come to the same question as I had when I started this. It's about promises, keeping promises, and thinking about who is responsible to whom, why, and how. Concerning the Finnish perspective, we very quickly come and meet evaluation as well. We rather talk about evaluation than assessment in Finland. To us, evaluation is a broader perspective than assessment. And whenever we get the results of an evaluation, we meet with a question, what we do with the results. So, we now talk about accountability, which we would rather talk about as responsibility. My responsibility definitely is to be on time when a webinar like this starts. I'm very clearly responsible to all of you who are listening there, and also to the moderator, to the arranger who relies on me being here. How I am responsible? Well, very easy in this case. If everybody's waiting for the presenter to be there and he is not, yes, it's not very good work then. Why? Yeah, because we've arranged this event here. We are taking a lot of trouble to try to learn together, to have a good discussion on accountability. What shall we do with the results that I was a bit late or would even have missed the whole webinar? That's a good question, and to be honest, I don't really have the answer to that here. Concerning responsibility in Finland otherwise, as earlier said, I think we in Finland feel that we have at least 3 levels to consider when we are talking about responsibility. The primary responsibility is that the school has towards its pupils, students and their parents. Why we often tend to oppose standardized tests, and we don't have them in Finland really, but we do have other kind of national testing, I have to say already here. But why we do not like standardized tests or many forms of responsibility that are realized through measurements is that measurements tend to focus on those goals that are very easily measured and evaluated. And if we think about the Finnish National Core Curriculum, it definitely does not start with the academic goals. It starts with the non-academic goals. It gives as the basic education the task to take care of the whole human being, about the whole society, about the whole community. So, when we measure responsibility, we should measure both growing and learning. And they should be, in fact, primary to evaluation. It often seems to be so that we, in accountability discussion, concentrate on measuring and assessment, which then makes the growing and learning secondary to evaluation, because we have to lead the growing and learning process in a certain way so that it enables us to do the measurement. So we see that the school has responsibility for its pupils, students and their parents, and we see that the focus in responsibility would be on the agreements that students, parents and school have made together. And how we've tried to develop responsibility in the Finnish education system is through enabling and in fact obligating school to proactively have as direct interaction with pupils, students and parents as possible. When we did the 1994 National Core Curriculum, we had an extensive discussion on evaluation, and especially on what we do if we get evaluation results that show that somebody is not doing that well. Our answer there is very clear. It's the same one as we have in our education system also otherwise. The answer is we support. We try to support in every possible way we can. The next level in the responsibility issue is the community. We see that the main responsibility of the local provision of education is for its citizens. And we see that that responsibility comprises offering pupils, students and their parents educational services that fulfill their dreams and needs so that it's good to live in the community. We see that social services, health services have the same task there. Then on evaluation again, how we evaluate this responsibility. If the focus is on having or offering a good life, then the focus on evaluation should be on that aspect. So we are not concentrating really on the academic outcomes here either. The Finnish legislation obligates all education providers, mostly that is then local authorities, to locally evaluate the education services. There are no strict rules for that. Mostly we are working through quality evaluation. The Finnish National Board of Education has created a quality card system which focuses on 4 structural factors, which are governance, personnel, economic outcomes and evaluation. And then there are 6 quality cards which relate to pupil-related quality. 6 for pupil, because we think that that's where the main issue is. Those quality cards advise education providers to evaluate the quality on the implementation of curriculum, instruction and teaching arrangements, support to learning and growth and well-being, inclusion and influence, school-home cooperation and safety of learning environment. Finnish municipalities have a constitutional autonomy. It's really impossible for the state to start punishing there, and I definitely know that they would not even want to do it. The answer to the question what should be done if a school fails at this level too is to offer support. The third level we have is society. There we say that the main responsibility of the education system is the responsibility the education system has for its citizens. That responsibility comprises ensuring that people in the society have a good life and a good future. Evaluation is not really on academic things again. Evaluation should be focusing on how the system works. How the system works does not require to test every school through standardized tests, or every teacher, every student, but to get a systematic, inclusive picture of how the education system works. That's why we do not have national tests that are conducted by all the schools, all the students, but we focus on having sample tests that give a very inclusive picture of where the education system is, and we support that information data with a very diverse data concerning how the system works. However, there is the national test system in basic education and also the matriculation examination in upper secondary general education, and they do give us a very good picture of how the learning comes in the various subjects as well. When we get those results, and I know the system works well, that we very well know where the education system lies in very many ways, we come back to the question what to do with the results again. And also at the societal level, the answer is the same. It's to try to support. When we noticed that school classes started growing, the Ministry of Education started allocating money to diminish the class sizes. It's money that education providers apply for, and it must be used particularly to that purpose. When we've noticed that inequality in Finland has been and is still increasing, the Ministry of Education allocated money to help those communities that seem to need more support, to help people or students, pupils whose parents are, for example, unemployed or do not have that good social welfare. And we are doing that now too. We don't need the school-based standardized test results to be able to do that. The focus we try to have somewhere else. We give the state criticism at the moment at the societal level for building goals on an ideal foundation which does not correspond to the reality. There's a very lively, intensive discussion exactly on this topic in Finland. We've now been talking about accountability as responsibility at 3 levels, looking at it from the point of view of the education system or the local provision of education or the school being responsible for pupils, students, parents, local communities, citizens, society. What we want to discuss concerning responsibility is also responsibility the state has towards the society to lead it so that the system works, so that we will have a good future. To look at the local provision of education, to lead its local provision of education so that schools can do their work, fulfill their mission. To look at the school and at the school leadership to do their work so that teachers can really be responsible towards students and their parents in the way that we see responsibility. Thank you for listening, and I suppose Nóra will continue from here and we will start to discuss. Okay?
Yes. Thank you very much, Mika, for your inspiring presentation. Igors, do you think you can switch on your camera and microphone as well so that we can start the discussion?
Yes.
And thank you. And the first thing I would like to talk about a bit is, well, what Mika presented, the Finnish system is very much based on responsibility and support instead of testing and sanctioning. And but in many countries it is not so. I had the pleasure to listen to the presentation of Professor Salberg, who you quoted in your presentation, Mika, and who said that instead of accountability, we should talk about trust-based responsibility. And I was wondering what the participants think about it, who come from very different national contexts. So I would propose a vote before we start the discussion. And I would like to ask the participants to answer this question. So, should the school system be built on accountability or trust-based responsibility? And you have 4 options: accountability, trust-based responsibility, both or neither. Yes, they have different meanings. This is a provocative question. We will see what your answer is.
Are we ready with that vote?
Yes, 13 participants have voted. I will stop voting now. And I'm going to publish the results. So can you see the results now?
Mm-hmm.
We have accountability 1 vote, trust-based responsibility 3 votes, and both 9 votes. And I would like to ask you, Mika and Igors, to interpret the results and to say a few words about that.
Would you like to start, Igors, or shall I?
I will allow you to start.
Okay. I voted for trust-based responsibility, but exactly as Yuri says, words and settings have different meanings. We talk a lot about trust concerning the Finnish education system, and I think we Finns make the mistake that we give the picture that trust in our system is somehow blind. It is not like that. It's just that I think we focus on having the direct responsibility. I worked as a secondary school principal for 15 years, and I think teachers very quickly learned to tell me if something had gone wrong, because they knew that the students would be calling their parents on their mobiles already during the day, so information would go very quickly, and that I would listen to all the partners to try to see what has happened and what we should do with it. And we have a system called Vilma in Finnish schools, where teachers in fact document everything that takes place at school, and both students and parents have online access to communicate and see what takes place in school. So we have the, I suppose, accountability there too. We have the tools for that, but still the approach is somewhat different, and the thing is that what you do when something fails, and I think that's why we want to emphasize the trust-based responsibility. But I could have voted both also, because, as I said, the trust that we have is not blind, and if something goes wrong, definitely something will happen in Finland too.
You, Mika? Igors? What is your view?
Okay. To me, trust is very important. If I couldn't have worked some 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago in Latvia, because controlling environment was prevalent there, then, and being a rather creative person and person who wants to go out of boundaries all the time, and wants to build with my colleagues their own idea of how school should work. I expect to be trusted, and if I'm not trusted, then I cannot work. And I have been lucky enough to live in times when control has diminished and trust has increased in Latvia. And for me, it has worked out very well. And in principle, I think that trust-based system will work better, and I think we are going towards that as a country as well. I hope so. But what I support that we should be given the diagnostics of how we are doing. We should be given tools to assess how we are doing for ourselves. To have availability of good information on how we are doing. And if we are not doing very well, we should have ability to require and get help. And if that works, and if you cannot succeed as a manager, as a leader anyway, with being trusted, with having help, if you cannot succeed with your colleagues for a prolonged period of time, well, then you must go. And others should do the job. But trust must be there and support must be there as well.
Thank you very much. There is a question from Yuri Ginter concerning testing. So the question is, do you think that testing can produce evidence that can be helpful to leaders? And actually, Igors has more or less answered. He said that you do need tools to get information on how to improve. Mika, what do you think?
I agree there, and in fact I was chatting with Yuri there and answering his question, or the last comment there, that the richness every day is not enough either. And I was starting there to say also, we often in our everyday life are caged by the concrete things around us. And there evidence or research is very important to open us that maybe there is something else than just the things that we have in our school or in my classroom or whatever it is. So we need the dialogue between practitioners, researchers, with those people who we serve, and also policymakers, exactly as what we are trying to do in EPNoSL. We need all those. It's very simple.
There is a question I would also like to ask. If we think of, if we take one aspect of accountability and think of the assessment of school performance and of teachers by, for example, the inspectorate, or depending on the countries, some kind of state control, do you have any experience on how these systems can successfully be introduced in countries where, for example, they do not exist, so where there is no central school assessment or teacher evaluation? Because I think this is very difficult. It is very difficult to make teachers and professionals accept that they are going to be assessed. What do you think? How is it best to introduce such systems?
I will pick that up.
Yes.
I don't believe in assessment at all. I don't believe it helps. I don't believe people should be measured against others. I think that the only reason for looking at the practice of professional is to help him, is to open more possibilities and ideas to that person, is to push him, to help him a step higher. There, I don't see reason for giving some mark or excellent or satisfactory or anything like that. I expect that each teacher will become better on his own way. And my task, when I look at his performance, when I look at his lessons, is to help him. Grading him or giving him some stance or diploma that he is excellent or not so excellent or poor teacher will not help anyone. We should have either good teachers and excellent teachers or no teachers at all in classrooms. Okay, and we should have teachers that go towards wellness or excellency, and if they don't want to go there, well, they shouldn't be teachers. I don't believe in assessment. And I hope I got the word, the name right, the word right.
Yeah, maybe I should reformulate the question somewhat, and instead of saying the word assessment, let's use the word evaluation, which can also be formative evaluation.
It is the same. It is the same.
Evaluation.
Evaluation is the same. It is about grading person. I don't think that helps. I think that what helps is looking at practice and asking person, what are you trying to do? Do you know what you are trying to do? If you don't know, let's find out what do you want to do actually. And if you are trying to do that, do the practices you employ help you to achieve things? And that's the conversation we should have, and not about evaluating on some rubric or form or anything like that.
Surprisingly, from Finland, I would see it a bit differently. I do think that we need to have evaluation, and I also think that we need to have assessment too, both diagnostic, formative and summative assessment. To me, to Finns, the question is how we do it and why, and what we do with the information that we get. At the school level, I think it is very important that we know where the students are in their learning processes. It is vital to be able to position the students and for the students to position themselves so that we can lead the learning process in the right way. But we do not believe that we can do that with standardized tests, because standardized tests do not take into consideration that we people are so different. Some learn things a bit more quickly than others, and some just need the time. And concerning your development path, it should not really matter whether you take the short path or the long path, because all of us will be adults for quite a long time, and that's what counters there. Concerning teachers and teacher evaluation, as a principle, I want to have, for example, developmental discussions with our teachers. I wanted to be aware of the dreams that they had, about the problems that they had, and for example, when we think about who is going to teach what group, we know that groups are very different from each other, teachers are very different from each other, so I know that teachers in the teacher teams took into consideration so that we would get the optimal match concerning the student group and the teacher the whole time. And when I was making the timetable for the schools, I always try to look into that too. So I do think that we need that information, and it has to be exact and it has to be open, and it's good that people do self-evaluation too, so that they know each other. I think what we try to avoid in Finland is I always say that it's important to make it visible, but here I would say that we try to avoid making many evaluation or assessment results very visible, because it's like all our evaluations show that the most important factor concerning learning incomes is not the school, it's not the teacher. In Finland, it seems to be the parents' socio-economic status. So every time when we are giving out school-based bad results, we are also labeling that whole community. And we want to avoid doing that. We see that it's nobody's benefit, and we do have a lot of research data on the vicious circle that is created when a school gets a bad label on it. Teachers do not want to work there, students do not want to come there, and so who does that serve? And so we have to be very careful with evaluation. It's like the former director of the in-service center for Helsinki University, Kauko Hämäläinen, said evaluation is like alcohol. It's good to have some, but it's definitely not good to have a lot of it.
Thanks for the metaphor.
It was not mine, it was Kauko Hämäläinen's, but a very good one.
Yeah, yeah. And Igors agrees with you that self-evaluation is important, and I saw his chat messages that teacher self-evaluation is something that works very well in his school as well. And just before we finish, because we have little time left, in the discussions, participants' discussions, the question about involving students came up several times. So just the last question concerning that. How do you see we can, or students can be involved in accountability processes? Igors, for example, in your school, are there examples?
Yes, I got a few of comments that recommended that teacher evenings, teacher-parent evenings should include kids, and one-to-one meetings should include kids as well. I didn't mention that. We do have children in those meetings. It's just a lapse in my presentation. We have kids in these meetings, not in preschool, although we are thinking about having preschool kids in these one-to-one teacher-parent meetings as well. And I think we will go there. We will go there this year. So that is about involving students and preschool children. And you saw the vision statement was about the promise of teachers. We are going to do the next step, and it is about the promise of students and the promise of parents. We have done only the first step, and that is the promise we make to parents and to children. And the next step will be children making promise to teachers and parents making promise to teachers and their children, their kids. So that's the next step we are going to.
Thank you very much. It seems that unfortunately our time is up, but I can see that participants are quite engaged in the discussion, and I would like to encourage everybody to continue this discussion on the platform of EPNoSL, where the webinar is going to be posted very soon, in 1 or 2 days, and then the participants can continue asking questions. And I would also like to remind you that it's very important for us to have your feedback on our webinars. So if you have a few moments, then please do fill in our questionnaire. And last but not least, I would like to invite you for our next webinar, which is going to be on the 1st of October on the theme of educating school leaders. And we are going to have 3 presenters: Michael Schrass from Austria, Tom Hamilton from Scotland, and Huub Friedrichs from the Netherlands. So everyone is very welcome, and you are also very welcome to join our forum discussions. Mika and Igors, I would like to thank you very much for the presentations and for the discussion. And I do hope that we can continue speaking on the platform. And I would also like to thank all the participants for being here. And I hope to see you soon on our platform and in the next webinar. Thank you very much and goodbye.